Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So for
Mhm.
this episode, we are meeting with David Barbarisi. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a
Perfect.
very cool last name, by the way.
Thank you.
I've always been like, that's a cool last name. Love that.
It's
Uh,
Italian.
yeah, I can tell. Um, So thanks for joining me. I'm really excited to talk to you. You and I have like so many interesting, wide variety of chats, like via Instagram voice clips and text voice clips. And
Mhm.
we first met, where did we meet? Did we meet at Health Freedom for Humanity back in Kansas City? Like
Probably. That's a good question.
that's where we first met.
Yeah,
Was that
that's true.
2020?
2021.
2021. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Wow.
And yeah, the reason that I wanted to talk to you, you're super fucking smart.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And there's so much that we talk about health stuff, we talk about politics, we talk about globe theory, we've touched on kind of everything. We talk about intuition, disembodiment. And so I just thought like, yeah, we'll have a really good conversation today. So to start, why don't you just like tell us who you are, what your mission is, what you do? Yeah, give us a little background.
Sure. Um, yeah, who am I? Uh-oh.
Somebody,
Um, yeah, so I kind of came up, well, I guess profession is the easiest thing. I was a software engineer, web developer, tech guy. I grew up in front of screens, all of that. Um, 7 or so years ago, I kind of had my big health revelation, I guess,
mm,
um, where I made lots of lifestyle changes, changed food, went outside, got
right.
closer to nature. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it changed my world because, yeah, I was coming from what I'd sort of call depression, not
Mhm.
feeling good.
Mhm.
I grew up with some physical issues, which we'll get
Wow.
into.
Mhm.
And since then, I've just been learning a ton about health and all the other crazy rabbit holes and
Mhm.
researching and just kept going and going. And
Mm,
so,
awesome.
yeah.
Do you feel like you mentioned you literally got outside? Did that really like open up? I mean, do you feel like that was really like kind of an instant opening of like kind of the pineal gland and just was that really like a kickstart to this journey, literally the sunlight? Like, did you notice that
Um,
at the time?
I did a lot of things, so it's hard
Okay.
to like attribute it to one
Yeah.
thing. But I had a health coach at the time, and she literally was like, well, not literally, practically begging me
Right.
to go outside at some point. Because
Wow.
I like, why would I want to do that? That doesn't make any sense. I got the computer, the TV, I got beer, I got like fake food, everything. And yeah, like I spent a whole lot of time inside, and it just never occurred
Yeah.
to me. Um, It's kind of
Amazing.
painted a lot of the simplicity part of all this too.
Totally. Yeah. Biology, nature. But we don't think like for me, I heard that. I knew that I was supposed to be outside. But to me, it was one of those things that was like not that important. It was like,
Mhm.
well, it's not going to make that much of a difference. And then when I actually started, I was like, well, I think I need to just do it. I need to commit to
Mhm.
it. And once I did, it really was quite a drastic change in like my sleep and my mood and everything. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay. And then I got behind the science, the quantum biology, and you know, the science, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, it's literal. Like, okay, it's
Yes.
really, really a big deal.
Yeah. I
Um,
had I'll have days where like I'm not in a good mood or something,
yeah,
and then I'll talk to someone and they go, "Did you go outside yet?" I go, "Oh, that's what I forgot." Like it's
exactly.
very obvious
Yeah,
now. There's a pull.
same. Well, what's interesting is like with my history with lupus, when I was really, really sick, the sun hurt. Like
Mm.
I think I had either I mean, I don't know if they would call it like blue light toxicity because this was even before, this is when I was in my 20s. This was before we had the screens we have now, but I was just, it was indoor sedentary lifestyle. And I was, quite ill physically, but also in my addiction and this type of stuff. And I remember because I'm in Atlanta, if I would go outside on like a hot day, the heat and the sun would just like, I would like literally was like painful. And it was really interesting when I started to heal because I realized like my body was so misattuned in so many ways to the natural world and that it was almost like my body wasn't rejecting it, but my body was it had to adapt again. Like
Hmm.
that's how kind of far off I was. So think that's interesting too, because a lot of people with autoimmune will say I can't be in the sun. It's hurts. And I think that they don't realize like, oh, we got to titrate this a little bit and get you out in that morning sun, evening sun. But yeah. Um, so David, tell me what's your kind of like mission? What do you like to talk about most? Where do you want to start with even with our conversation? I know you touched on like you grew up with physical challenges. Um, yeah, so maybe we start there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's actually the topic that I've probably least talked
Oh,
about. So this is going to be super interesting
okay.
for everyone.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think it's because most of it just feels normal to me. So like I don't even know what things are unusual.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I was born, or as far as I can remember in this lifetime,
Uh-huh.
with a rare, it's called genetic condition. I
Okay.
have different perspectives on what genetics are, and that's
Yeah.
another topic.
We'll get
Um,
into it though.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so growing up, well, one thing, there's obvious physical differences. Um, uh, so it's one
Okay.
there's kind of like the syndrome of things where there's a whole lot of
Right.
symptoms, but then I
Uh-huh.
don't have all of those, and not everyone has all of those.
Right.
Um, the big thing is short stature,
Mm-hmm.
and then skull shape stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then brittle bones, which is that the bones are too dense, so they don't have any flexibility or give. And so growing up, I frequently broke or fractured my legs, each leg multiple times, like every other year or so.
Oh,
And then I've broken each collarbone once.
man.
Um, and it would be doing very like normally considered safe things.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I was being a daredevil or whatever. It was,
Skydiving or
yeah, no, it wasn't
jumping
any
off
of
cliffs.
that. No. I actually think it works backwards for me. Of like if I did those things, I would probably be
You'd be
fine.
fine.
Yeah. The first time was first grade. I was running and I tripped in the yard and I just fell and I broke my leg. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and it's interesting. This is one of the things where it sounds so ridiculous that when I was in the hospital, they would keep asking me like if my parents had done something, because it's kind of the thing where, like it sounds like child abuse or something.
Right, because it's so
So,
unusual that someone would. It's also
yeah,
kind of unusual if you think about it, like that didn't happen till first grade,
true. Yeah.
right? Like, because when you're learning to walk and learning to use your body as a little one, like a toddler,
Hmm.
because what first grade is like age
Yeah.
6 or so. So yeah, you fall a lot, right? So I'm curious, did the condition, did that brittle bone stuff increase? Or I guess you don't really know, huh?
I don't really know.
Yeah,
And I don't know the state of it now either, which is
right.
kind of an interesting challenge. Wanting to live not in a like victim kind of thing, but then
Exactly.
also kind of having that as a holding thing. And I imagine it's a lot like that with autoimmune stuff as well,
For
where
sure.
you're not, there's that concern of like coming back or having something happen again.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like well, I shouldn't say always, but there is still a lingering be careful of a flare, you know.
Hmm.
And so, I certainly like live a certain way to prevent, but I also live a certain way because like that's just my lifestyle now. I'll never
Hmm.
go back to how it was before. So it's kind of like old programming that's still
Hmm.
there. I don't think it's really relevant, though I am careful, like with travel and careful if I eat out or just little things like that. I don't really think that eating out, actually, that program is going away quite fast with the whole Germany medicine and stuff. I'm like,
Great.
my body can handle a little seed oil every now and then. Like it's not
Hmm.
gonna kill me. But so that's really hard. Like before we get into your ideas around genetics, because I
Hmm.
do want to definitely talk about that. I'm curious, you say with the breaking of the bones, we'll go into the disembodiment part. Like as a
Hmm.
little one, did you start to notice any kind of, yeah, I guess disembodiment, or like you wouldn't know that then, right? But looking back
Right.
on it now, can you see like, oh, there was maybe some dissociation, or did other symptoms kind of start as a result of like breaking bones? Because man, I broke my wrist like a year and a half ago, and that is painful. Painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The a few times, I do remember a lot of emotional stuff around it.
Yeah.
I would probably call it dissociation now, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, a few times after it had happened, I remember being in denial about it. Like I would walk on a broken leg and just be like,
Oh,
no, this
God.
isn't happening. And, like, because
Wow.
I didn't want to go through that. And then, a family member would go, hey, you're limping. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, I guess I'm not okay.
Wow.
Um, so kind of being in that mode of just like absolute denial, like what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Because at some point, like I could just like I have a knowing that it had happened.
Sure.
Um,
Were you starting to go numb in terms of the sensation though? A little bit? It's hard.
Maybe, yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
a full
It's hard to
experience of that.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, but so I remember that happening a few times where I was
Mhm.
just like, no, this isn't happening. I don't want to go through this again. Just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, I'm gonna walk it off. Like it's just gonna go away. Um, I do remember, I remember a lot of the thoughts and the feelings more of the feeling broken. Um,
Mhm.
that's even, even in the word broken bones, like I try to say fractured more.
Right.
To change that feeling like, like I got all the bad luck, like there's just randomness and, like,
Mhm.
uh, yeah, the feeling broken and yeah, and just kind of hating all of that. Yeah, there was
Mhm.
just
I wonder
anger,
if like,
frustration.
sure. And I wonder if like, that was maybe the beginning of you just hating the hospital visits. Being
Yeah,
like, something
that's true.
about this I don't like.
Yeah.
And
Um,
especially with them questioning your parents. And yeah, as a little kid, that's really, really, that's like a lot to deal with
mhm.
emotionally. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember my mom said that when they first like asked her, when they were trying to ask me separately and ask them separately what had happened, and then they said I just got frustrated and like yelled at the hospital people or like, no, this is what happened. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, I
Oh,
mean
healthy.
between that and the just multiple medical interventions and all that and kind of going through that experience of them wanting to do a lot of things and then
Mm.
doing some of the things and then not really seeing much difference.
Exactly.
Um, so I was not a fan of that system from the beginning.
Right.
And but I didn't know why. Well, I knew why other than like I was having not great experiences. And I just in adulthood I just stopped going to all of that, but I
Mm-hmm.
felt really, really guilty about it.
Mm.
Because you know, like you're supposed to get a checkup every year and get all the things, and you know, like there's so much programming there.
Mm-hmm.
So then when I felt then when I got into the holistic or natural side, I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like great, I was like already doing things
Right.
that made sense, and then now I have a good reason for why I didn't trust that.
Yeah, and now I have permission to not go to a doctor.
Right. Um,
Um, yeah.
but yeah, I've gone through, oh, the teeth journey is a whole other thing of
Oh,
like
wow.
my teeth don't really line up and I don't really have a bite. And so I've been through dentist, pulling teeth and you know, trying to
Mm,
wind the mouth and do all the other things and like it just didn't do much for me.
yeah. Um, so there was something that you said that sparked something in me. You said that you were going and getting a bunch of tests done. So, like, besides the broken bones, you were going, it sounds like you were going in a lot. And it's like, it kind of felt, I don't know, I had this idea of like, it's like the doctors want these answers, but it's like they, at the end of that, there's not really a solution or something they know they can do to make things better. So I can see how that's obviously really frustrating for a little one to always be having this experience of going to a doctor and there's nothing actually comes of it.
Right. Yeah. Not only that, but it was like I would go and I would feel like there was nothing wrong with me, and then they would tell me that there are things
Oh,
wrong.
yeah,
So,
exactly. And that's a
um,
big thing for kids. Like we talk about that a lot actually in our nervous system training. Irene talks about that quite a bit. As parents being really careful that we don't, imprint onto our kids like that idea that like there's something wrong.
mhm.
Because there's literally nothing wrong with a child. Most
Right.
of the time, it's the parent thinking that there is. Um, yeah, yeah, and it's part of that programming. So let's go into how you feel about genetics. What's your ideas around that? And yeah.
Yeah, sure. The I think it includes a lot of stories and a lot of assumptions, and there's a foundation that is not very strong.
Right.
Um, and that's my tactful way of putting that. But
Ah.
I think where I get passionate about it is the labels.
Mm,
And so I see this even within the holistic community where people will get genetic tests for their kids and
mm.
put a label on them.
Oh,
And
yeah.
um, the big one is like MTHFR for
Oh my God,
like,
I'm so glad you're touching on this because I
yes.
I have that. Whatever
Ah,
it is, I have it.
yeah. Um, the correlations between that and the things that they say are correlated with are not incredibly strong, is one piece of it.
What? Like what is it? Like chronic
'Cause
fatigue. Like,
yeah, or they'd say like kids with autism or that they don't detox as well. And
hmm.
there's like a few other things in there.
Well,
Um,
they don't assimilate, we don't assimilate apparently.
yeah,
So that's kind of like, yeah, it kind of usually goes hand in hand with not being able to detox well, I guess.
yeah. Um, but I feel, well, there's the scientific side, or sort of the
Uh-huh.
left brain side, I guess, of like when I go and I look down these rabbit holes of how tests are created, how we found DNA and genes and all that. And it's like we took something from the body, we added a bunch of chemicals, and then we like told a story about it.
Right.
And so we just need to take a little more care with that, in terms of taking on stories from that.
Right. Well, because with in the MTHFRs, I think is a great example because it's it's implied, well, or and even like literally told that it's genetic, and the whole thing is that there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
Whereas obviously, if you're not assimilating well and not detoxing well, and you have fatigue or whatever this, however it plays out in your symptomology, there's literally so much you can do about that.
Yes.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. So I think it's a little bit of like it kind of lets us off the hook because it
right,
gives us another like this is a fixed thing, this is my destiny.
right.
And I don't think it's true, but that's the whole like getting into the science conversation. So I'm kind of leaving
Yeah.
that out here because I don't have all the details in my head. But
Uh-huh.
I think there's the story aspect of it.
Exactly.
Um, like yes, work with symptoms because those are our direct experiences. Like
Right.
however you experience your life, you know, do whatever you need to do to work on that. But then when we have these things that we can't even discern from our own direct experience, we have someone else telling us that this is a thing and telling us that it's a fixed thing. Like that doesn't give me much to work on or much to do or anything.
Yeah, and that just like really sets in that victim consciousness,
Hmm.
and I'm noticing too, victim consciousness, man, that is like there's some like deep layers to that.
Hmm.
Because I
Yes.
noticed in my own like journey, with lupus, a lot of that shame and that shutdown was connected to that, right? And there was like this very apparent, obvious way that I was stuck in that victim mentality that was very much correlated to my big flares.
Hmm.
But then after I healed, kind of like I call it that kind of like big chunk, that was like kind of right at the surface, and when I started getting into this nervous system world and healing trauma and noticing my patterns, that big layer came off. But now here I am years later, noticing all these subtle ways that that victim consciousness is still plays out in these different ways, and different ways that my kids experience it, and other people in conversations, things I wouldn't have even necessarily labeled maybe years ago as victim, but here it is, so weaved into these labels, so weaved
Hmm.
into this, to our societal programming. It's really, really quite detrimental when we start to think about, us moving forward, forging our own path and becoming truly autonomous. It's like that's the thread, that victim thread, that has to be really dissected and teased apart, I
Hmm.
think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, on the coming to my personal level of it, um, I did spend a lot of time in my life, thinking I was broken and then thinking that like I would never want to have kids.
Mm.
Or that I would never get married, like no one would want to date me. Like
Mhm.
so much spun around in that.
Mhm.
Um, it was like an oh, I can't let this carry on, like I can't let this condition
Mhm.
keep going, I guess. And then not only that, but that I wouldn't be able to go through these challenges with my children if that happened.
Mm.
Like, oh, I've already lived through this once. I'm not gonna like wait,
Do it again.
do it again. Um, like this is so much story to that. And of course,
Absolutely.
it's, self-fulfilling of like, oh, I didn't really like try to date a lot and I didn't think
Right.
I was gonna start a family and all that. And so, yeah, like that's how deep it kind of runs once it's that like permanent curse.
Right. Yeah. And the irony is it's not permanent, right? It's not a curse.
Right.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but we see it play out in our decision making and how it
Mhm.
forms each day, right? And how we our worthiness, obviously, if it's wrapped up in that that sort of victim stuff, then it's really yeah, it's playing out in our relationships, our our ability to move forward, and maybe chronic illness, but also really other ways as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so so let's get into, so if you don't, so what do you think that the whole genes, so if there's no genetic stuff, so let's talk about, like, let's get a little bit
Yeah.
deeper into this. So what about just the fact that both my kids look like me?
Right. So I love the comparison to inheritance. So I've heard this somewhere, like it's like a bank account, like you're inheriting from your parents,
Mm.
but it's not a fixed thing.
Ah,
So I would call that heredity,
okay.
or inheritance. And I would also make the joke that some pet owners look like their pets. So I don't call that
100%.
genetics either. Um, I think it's kind of, and this is the magical part, is that we have way more influence over each other, and and there's things that we don't understand, um, than what we realize. Um,
Yeah.
and I think there's spiritual, energetic, there's things I can't describe or I don't know. I'm sure there's ancestral influences, maybe past life influences as well. I don't know. I think that's my whole thing is
I
I
think
don't
that's a
know.
great, yeah. No, I think that's a great. I mean, it's partners start to look like each other. They start to
Mhm,
talk like each other. I mean, we
mhm,
see this in partnerships all the time. And in the nervous system world, I keep coming back to that because that's my area. We talk about how, like, behavior is mimicked, and literal posture, the way that our bodies form, like when we watch our parents um hold in their body, in their face, in their jaw, all these ways that we hold stress and trauma, we we become kind of mirrors as little ones
mhm,
to how our parents, are the physical disposition of our parents, but how their nervous systems respond to life, which shows up in their physical appearance. And then we mimic these behaviors. I mean, the very classic case that we see of this is in collapse. Like, so when somebody hits that high tone dorsal part of the parasympathetic, that shutdown state, we call it collapse because the posture literally collapses.
mhm,
And so we can see children have same type spinal, hip, all these ways in which, where the parent is carrying that. And then all of a sudden you see the 2-year-old, oh, they have these, the knees collapsed together, flatter feet. All this happens really, really young, even if that child hasn't experienced maybe shame or some toxicity, toxic type traumatic or adversity that the parents did, but they are just mimicking the literal posture. But what's interesting that can happen is that emotion can come as a result of the physical expression. So if a
mm,
person walks around long enough like this, eventually, that emotional state, and obviously, like, if the parent has that, then the child starts to mimic. So we see that happen for sure. But I always think it'd be interesting to, like, have somebody test, like, what, I have this big nose, my mom had this, like, hump, like, where did that come from? Like, what does that mean? Like, does that mean, like, I don't know, I'm really good at smelling or something? What trait did we have? Like, what emotional trait did we have that, like, gave us this big nose? I am actually really good at smelling, so there is that.
Very interesting. Yeah, this yeah, ties into the what I've been learning lately of the relationship between the emotional and the physical.
Yeah.
Um, this gets into kind of the conversation of the different layers
Yeah.
to work with, um, and sort of the pendulum swing from all working on the emotional to all working on the physical, and that
Right.
actually they feed into each other, and we kind of need to do a little of both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a little bit of health biohacking is very really helpful,
Hmm.
I think. Because obviously I do probably a lot of like emotional type healing with my work and with myself and all that now. But that doesn't mean that I neglect all the health stuff, but it
Right.
also means I don't have to be as afraid, you know,
Yeah.
of some of that
There,
stuff.
there's a resilience and adaptability.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that the resilience and the adaptability comes too with its education, but it's just the trust, that in um in our own bodies and the trust that harmony can happen.
Hmm.
Um yeah. So
So
go ahead.
the I guess the gist of it with genetics is that I don't believe the blueprint to make us is physical chemical stuff inside of us.
Ah,
You
so
know, like
yeah.
maybe it's somewhere else, maybe it's not physical. I don't think it's fixed. I think
Yeah.
some things are fixed.
Uh-huh.
Like so I am 4 foot 10
Uh-huh.
inches tall. As an adult, I don't think I'm gonna get any taller, no matter
Uh-huh.
what health things I do. But I don't know, that could be a limiting belief too. Maybe I'll surprise myself.
I mean, yeah, if we think about all this that we're talking about, I mean, you mentioned like this inheriting thing, and I wrote down like, it's this influence of it's the ether, right? We could talk
Hmm.
about like the ether, there's something in the field
Hmm.
that is either and in our own field, in our own psyche, and in the field around us, right? If we did really change all those things, I mean, would that change? Like, I mean, but the thing is like what we have to realize is like how deep this goes,
Hmm.
so because it can actually go into these past lives and so much um generational stuff. And so I really get curious about like where the freedom, sort of more cutting edge of this health topic, are going to be with our own health, like how far this really goes. If we talk about it in the spiritual sense, and I hate to use these kind of like trendy words, but for lack of a better one,
Hmm.
ascension, is like, is this part of this ascension process where we literally start to transform things over time that we didn't think we would ever be able to transform.
Hmm.
And what's interesting, if we think about a decade ago, or certainly 20 years ago, I mean, no one thought they could heal autoimmune. I mean, maybe some people thought that, but it was not trending. Now it's
Right.
like very clear, like, oh, of course we can. And then it even goes into like now, of course, we're questioning germ theory, so if we think about the trend of like where we were and where we are now, I mean, I would not be surprised, David, if there is a world with which you could be 5, 10, or whatever. I mean, look, it might not happen in our lifetime, but I certainly think we're trending in that direction for something like that miraculous to be able to take place.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, I suspect that a lot of that knowledge is there, out there
Right.
somewhere,
Yeah.
and has been for a while, and then now it's like getting more popular. Like
Yeah.
now we're more aware of things. It's really funny to me because I realize sometimes I'm talking about things that sound like miracles, to like a mainstream audience, and I go like, oh yeah, that is unusual. Like I'm so
Right.
used to it at this point. Um,
I know. We have
like
to filter ourselves. I hate that. I feel like I still filter myself in the outside world just because I'm not always going to get into a debate with somebody out like
right,
at my kid's school or something like that, for instance, you know. But yeah,
right,
we're pretty out there.
right.
But I
But it's a
also
good
get really shocked. Don't you get shocked at how far behind some people seem to be? Like, I can't believe people still think viruses kill us. We'll talk about that. But like, I can't
yeah,
believe there's still this push to like get medicine, medical aid, you know, uh, to
yeah,
to like AIDS and Africa, and these seem like great missions, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, people still don't understand.
right.
No.
I I have compassion on that part. Like
Yeah.
I do still get angry and
Uh-huh.
kind of rage a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But like I also understand like growing up from all that, and that it's been over 100 years, and we could argue maybe thousands of years or whatever, that like these sort of false paradigms have been planted in us.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I can kind of see it still.
Yeah.
Although I will say I mostly avoid mainstream people. That's my polite
Yeah.
name, or my polite label. And yeah, when I do go, visit family or whatever and go back into those worlds and like, you guys are still doing this? Like you're still
Right.
playing this, like it's 2025. Are you still getting a whole bunch of tests for things,
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I do feel like, oh, I totally forgot that we're still playing this game in
Yeah.
some places. But yeah, it's getting better. I try not to think about it too much.
I know.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, that also too, like when we think about the people that are still like just not gonna change, I'm also really curious about our future in terms of just being so separate, you
mhm.
know, because again, it's like some people are not here in this life to figure that out, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
And so it's like, what is the yeah, I get really curious about like what does the future look like with us and them and that division just getting even stronger, and then is it that we all kind of switch over at some point, or does the division just keep going, and you know um but let's, before we get down too much about what's going to happen, because I love those
Mhm.
types of questions, um, let's actually talk about just briefly like what we believe, or I want you to, would love for you to explain it, because I just think, I don't know, you have a great way of explaining things. Like, what is terrain theory? What's your
Mhm.
ideas around it? One thing you said in your conversation that I just listened to was, my body is smarter than me. And I love that. And so, yeah, so why don't you talk about like what we've kind of
Yeah.
discovered in our health world.
Yeah. So, and I have changed my answer to this multiple
Oh,
times in the last few years. Um, so germ theory is the idea that there are microbes, bugs, or germs out to get us, and they cause disease and they spread from person to person. Terrain, and I don't really use the word theory because it's kind of technically not. It's just kind of
theory.
the
Right.
mindset. So I like paradigm or model. I've kind of been
Right.
liking paradigm, but this is the idea that life is adapting to what's going on in the environment, so that these microbes, the things we're seeing, are actually being supportive to us because we are nature.
Mhm.
Um, and it's awesome because it matches with regenerative agriculture. So I'm a huge fan of regenerative farming and all that. Um, you have worms in your garden. Like, that's an awesome thing. Like, we would celebrate that.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing in the body. Like,
Right.
they're helping. Um, and what I've come to in the last few years, I've been learning from the Biggleson brothers, Adam and Josh.
Mhm.
They are big into the terrain. They have been in this for multiple decades. Um, and they have a lot of other awesome stories. What I've come to learn from them is about microzyma and pleomorphism. And so this is
Wow.
a little more on the technical side, but this is exciting.
Okay.
Um, we have things in our blood. They're like the building blocks of life. They're called microzyma. They have other names too, because different people discovered them. They change into bacteria and fungus based on the terrain that they're in. So literally, the germs are us. They are part of us.
Mm.
Like, I don't mean that in a kind of like, I do mean that in kind of a spiritual way too, but I also mean that in a very literal way.
Right. So
Um,
they change, say it again, go back and say they change based on, because you said fungus in there. Say that again.
yeah, they change based on the terrain or the environment.
Okay.
So things like the pH of where they are or the, I don't know, the temperature, humidity, like different conditions.
Right.
So they turn into the thing that we need. And they act as like the cleanup crew, or they can provide nourishment. Like they're helping. So
Right.
they're not the this is they're like the firefighters at the fire,
Right.
where you see a fire and you see firefighters and you don't blame them for causing the fire.
Right.
So the microbes, the germs, which I mean to mean bacteria and fungus, show up when you
And
have,
parasites, right?
yeah, the parasites too.
Mhm.
Um, that one I think is a little more nuanced, and I maybe don't have all the details there. But yeah, they are feeding off of things that we don't want in our body anyway. So the typical example for parasites is that they eat heavy metals. And so people will have parasites. They eat the heavy metals. I don't love the word parasites because it has a negative connotation, but um,
Yeah, it really does. Right.
it's the same thing
Yeah.
with germs and yeah,
Bugs.
but
Yeah.
right.
Little bugs.
But yeah. Um, so they're eating the heavy metals or they're like pooping out something that's easier for us to remove. Um,
Ah,
so
got it.
so they do that job. Um, like they're composting.
Right.
Um, so if we try to get rid of them, will the symptoms will go away, but then we still have the original problem of the heavy metals or the toxins or whatever.
Which is causing a more long-term chronic underlying
Yes.
symptomology. Right.
Yes.
I heard a theory when I was in Austin for a German New Medicine convention that the body holds on to heavy metals when it's deficient in minerals because the
I've
body uses the heavy metals as a mineral source. I thought that was really interesting. I was like, wow,
yeah,
okay.
I've heard that too. I
Yeah.
haven't looked further into it, but that also kind of makes sense.
It
Um,
kind of makes sense
yeah.
when we think about that autism and different symptoms, neurological type symptoms that are associated with high heavy metal toxicity. Because when those people or individuals go to get testing done, they are depleted in minerals,
Hmm.
usually too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The that makes sense to me. I am just cautious on the when we notice two things together of like, they're
It
correlated.
has to be this way, right?
Yeah, like what's the leading thing?
Right.
And like it makes sense, but I just don't know which is the case. Because yeah, I think that's part of one of the solutions is like, well, most of us are probably mineral deficient anyway, but
Yeah, well, we're not getting what we got from our food.
right.
Which
Um,
actually brings me to I challenge your juicing theory, which is interesting
okay.
because I don't juice. I
Okay.
don't do it anymore. But
Hmm.
when I did,
Hmm.
I got incredible. I should go back to it. Actually, it was really nice. I did get really, really, really amazing. Just like I felt so invigorated. That's the word
Hmm.
I'm looking for, invigorated. And I do think that it's just giving us, it's kind of like a biohack to just a big punch of minerals that are easily
Hmm.
digestible, easily absorbable, more so than food. I also think that it has a detoxification quality, obviously, to it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I did like what you were saying about like our ancestors didn't have blenders. Like we don't really need
Right.
that. And yes, in a world where we're actually getting what we need from our food, I think we wouldn't really need a juice, but because our food is lacking so much, a juice really does pack a punch.
Hmm.
Um, anyway,
Yeah.
that was my challenge on that. But yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm I guess I haven't personally had dramatic results with it, and I haven't committed to it either, so I can't
Yeah.
say personally.
Yeah.
Um, I know for a while I've had the diet dogma because I'm a huge follower of the Weston A. Price Foundation,
Yeah.
and they do not recommend juices or smoothies at all.
Right. Yeah, because the
Because of the
cold.
yeah, well, because of the ancestors didn't do it.
Got it.
So like they're looking from that lens of what did these groups that Weston Price studied, what did they do?
I mean, to me, you can only look at that if there's zero glyphosate, there's
Right,
zero, like, there's no hormones, chemicals,
right.
da 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 da. Now we can control what we eat, obviously, in our own homes and
Hmm.
go back to that, like as much as possible. If we can get all of our produce from a local farmer and get really high quality grass-fed meats. Yeah, then
Hmm.
yeah, I mean that's the ticket. But I do think that the what you get in red meat, a high quality red meat, is probably going to be about what you would get, or probably more than what you would get in like a juice. But to me, they kind of serve a similar purpose.
Hmm.
But I do think
Yeah,
that the quality of some people's bodies can't tolerate juices. And
right.
I think blood type is a thing. Like if you're O, for sure, meat is going to be a better avenue to like get that mineral in there. But like I'm a type A, and I do well with juices, but let's not sidetrack too much on that. So,
Yeah, and like I'm okay with technology. So I'm not
yeah,
like, oh, once we
sometimes
have a
it's
new thing,
great.
we can't use it.
Right.
Um,
But I do think people overkill the whole juice
yes.
thing. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody should be raw vegan. In fact,
Right.
one thing that is pretty consistent when we look back at like some of these ancestral diets is mostly it's warm foods. I mean,
Oh.
like it's not, and when we look at Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine and these types of it's stood the test of time ways of
Mhm.
eating and living. I mean, there is some raw fruits, obviously, and
Mhm.
some raw veg, but though not many salads really. It's warm cooked foods, and we are warm-blooded humans. So
Mhm.
it makes sense like that coldness that definitely I think is something that kind of goes against our biology a bit.
Interesting. I haven't used that lens or thought of it that way.
Yeah, so
Um,
I have that background in Ayurveda, so I always kind of look
awesome.
at temperature and quality a lot. One of the things that I used to do to kind of hack that with my own juicing phase was just ginger, and that's why
Mm.
people say like if they add something hot and warm, like ginger, I mean turmeric, even some people add cayenne to their juices that kind of like helps the body be able to tolerate it. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. So going back, let's keep us, I'll try to keep us on track here. We could go
Yes.
off so many. Okay, we went into microzema. There was another
Mhm.
word you mentioned that was like a fancy science word. What was the other thing?
Pleomorphism.
Okay, so tell us what
So
that is.
that is the process of them changing. And
Got it.
there's a cycle that was observed where it's like the microzyma and they're a dot, and then they turn into the different forms of bacteria and fungus. Like they go all around the cycle.
Oh,
Um, and then when their job is done, they change into something else that we needed. Uh,
amazing.
yeah. And it's kind of like we're talking about with food being nutrient deficient. In the soil, we have all the microbes there, and they're transforming or transmuting the nourishment there so that we are getting the nutrition. And so there's even a little bit of this is an idea. I don't know if it's true or not, but
Hmm.
that the nutrition is all there. And it's just that we need the microbes to be in the forms that they need to be in so that they will release the nutrition in a way that we can use the food.
That our body can like basically accept it.
Yeah.
So do
So
you,
like it's kind of the like the abundance is all there. Like
right.
it's already in the soil. It's just we need to stop trying to kill everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we throw into the picture, let's go German New Medicine for a second.
Okay.
And let's say there's a conflict, like that indigestible morsel conflict is one that's very common, especially when we're talking about like gut stuff.
Mhm.
Um, if that's in the picture, that's enough to change the microbes to be
Mhm.
able to, or I'm assuming like this is what we're saying is happening, those microbes shift from like being able to convert what we might need to thrive to what we might need to survive. Like, how do we handle this conflict? So the microbes are like, put their little thinking caps on. They're like, oh, we have to change. Now there's been a disruption
Mhm.
emotionally. And she's, you know, in a situation where there's just, when I think from nervous system, that body kind of like freezes up, the gut kind of clenches, there's that bracing, and all of a sudden we're in survival and they all kind of switch around. Like, is that the idea?
Yes, like that's all part of the terrain.
Right.
The emotional, the physical, the energetic, the spiritual, and then all of the other layers that we have.
Uh,
Just like an infinite number of them. But
an
those are
infinite
like the big
number.
four from
Right.
Rudolf Steiner. But yeah,
Ah,
like all of them
favorite.
play into each other. Yeah. And yeah, it's just that everything is always adapting to this environment. So it's it's never static, it's never fixed. And yeah, they just do the things that we need them to do.
Yeah.
And so they're always supporting the terrain.
Hmm.
There are some extreme situations at the very some very extreme situations where if someone is too far gone, they're kind of recycling. And
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
that's where I want to set that distinction of like, yes, it's always for us and it's always healing us. And also sometimes if we have gone way too far off the road, then, we're being recycled.
Right.
Like the body's decomposing,
Well,
essentially.
it's that hanging healing, what we would call in
Mhm.
German New Medicine, the hanging healing. Yeah, and this is like just to because we can give like a whole thing on education on German New Medicine, but I wish we could. Maybe we'll have another talk. But in German New Medicine, the theory is that in the healing cycle, that's when we see the symptoms. So let's say somebody has been in a toxic environment or a toxic relationship for like 30 years, that the healing phase matches to some degree the length or intensity of whatever the conflict was.
Mm.
So the healing phase could be detrimental at that point if it was just, like if again, if it was
Uh,
really intense, toxic relationship, just as an example, let's say domestic abuse or something, and the
mhm,
abuser dies suddenly,
mhm.
then it's like the healing that that person could go through would be something detrimental. So I'm assuming like that's kind of like what you're talking about, right? Like it's
Yeah.
gone too
Yeah.
long.
There's some nuance to it. Yeah.
There's some nuance.
Essentially.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And
What's your
I
what's your thoughts on German New Medicine?
so um I would say I have not done enough homework to like definitively say. And so I can only speak to, what I've heard from others.
Hmm.
Um, Overall, like definitely emotional causes to things.
Yeah,
And like traditional Chinese medicine has this too.
sure.
Um,
Yeah,
so like that framework, like yes, to that idea.
right.
Then when we get into the details, I gotta have a little more scrutiny and I kind of not quite lined up.
Yeah.
Um, the so what I this is anecdotes that I've heard from others.
Okay.
Um, some people they totally get it, they totally resonate. GNM explains everything for them.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and I see that, and then I see the other extreme where like it doesn't line up for people. Like this is my one of my pet peeves, and this is more about practitioners than GNM itself. But if someone comes to me and tells me that my symptom must be caused by a thing, and that is like definitely it, and I go, oh, I don't have that story, like that doesn't make sense to me. To me, I don't want to be pushed on that. Like I just want to go, your thing doesn't fit me in this occasion.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, this is me more speaking about practitioners in general of like I don't like that, oh, I'm so certain that this is my
Like it
thing.
has to be this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, there's always multiple things. There's
Yeah.
always so many different factors.
Mhm.
That's been my experience.
Mhm.
It's never just one thing. But I also agree with you that sometimes it doesn't always match up. um, you know, but yeah, and I agree with the nuance, I explore it sometimes, like if I have a client that has like a symptom or I have something going on or my kids have something on, I'm like, I get curious around, oh, it says it's maybe this conflict. And then sometimes
Mhm.
it lines up and then sometimes it's just not as clear. But there's so much. German New Medicine is very complex. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
if you're right-handed or left-handed, it's
Yeah.
different sides of the brain, then it's different conflicts. I mean, it is really not simple. Um, so
That's
sticking to the terrain and
yeah.
terrain theory, a couple things that I wanted to mention that I heard on like an interview recently with Alec was, I think it was with Zach Bush, about mold. I think that's such a
Yes.
rabbit hole. I think it's so interesting. What they said was that mold is always there when there's another toxin present, which I didn't know that. Have you heard that?
Yeah. So I don't know if I guess it would be always there because it's changing into different things. So,
Right.
like, this is where you get into the problem of identity of like, if the
Uh-huh.
microzyma changes into all the things, then like it's always there. Um, but yeah, the thing with mold, like, it exists in nature and people are fine with it. But then when we're inside of
Right.
homes, that's when we have problems.
Yeah,
And so the concept behind it is that the mold is decomposing the toxic building materials
exactly.
and it's releasing waste products that are the things that are causing us problems. And so, and this, I mean, it kind of sucks to say like, oh, we got to move or we got to build our house with something different. Like,
Yeah,
that's not a good answer.
yeah,
Um, but that seems to be the situation of like, yeah, we're building things out of toxic materials. There's off gassing on its own. And then once there's moisture involved, the mold shows up and it's trying to decompose what's
Sure.
there.
Well, it's the fireman, right? It's
Yeah.
we're going against nature, and so then nature has to step in and try to do something to try to resolve what's
Hmm.
happening. It makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit because we could talk for 5 hours.
Uh,
Um, so I want to switch gears a little bit to this concept of volunteerism. Um,
okay.
and for you to tell everybody like what that means and how you live your life now and why you feel this is, I don't know, maybe an important part of an important option for people that they might not
Mhm.
have even realized.
Yeah. So this has become one of my latest passions,
I love it.
of voluntaryism, which,
Voluntaryism. Okay.
yeah, it's also known as anarchy, but anarchy has a negative connotation of chaos.
Yeah.
So voluntaryism has become the like new term. They kind of
Uh-huh.
mean the same thing, which is no rulers. And this is the that we as adults, and I'm going to set aside children and animals and plants and other life forms for now. But as
Uh-huh.
adults, we can make agreements with each other and live our lives as long as we're not harming others and do whatever we want to do. Um, there's a lot of tricky details in that, but that's the overall thing.
Uh-huh.
And no one else, no other man or woman has legitimate authority to control or rule over us individually. I think it sounds awesome. I think it's our natural state. But then when we start getting into implementation and details with government and, what do politicians do and how much power should government have, then it all kind of falls apart because we're conditioned to be like, oh, we need rulers or we need someone to tell us what to do.
Well, not only that, most of us has signed unknowingly signed
Mhm.
contracts that give rights away. So then
Yes.
it's like, how do we get out of those types of things? We don't
Y-
really even realize we've done that, but literally having a birth certificate has done part of that, right?
Right. Yeah, that part is difficult within this because we technically sort of volunteered for that, or our parents did, or whatever. But we just didn't know what we were signing. And so I think that's harder to fit in with voluntarism because we kind of consented to it. That's more of like an education thing, or
Right.
like we don't need to be coerced on these things. So
Exactly.
like if I wanted to work with you, we would write an agreement and we'd set out details and we would say, hey, if there's any conflicts or issues, here's how we would deal with it. We would talk to each other directly, or we would have some trusted friend and they would help us solve our problems.
Mhm.
Um, and like that's how we used to do things.
Sure.
And then somehow we got to, oh, we need lawyers and we need politicians and we need licenses and like all the other things. And it's like we've removed the self-responsibility piece.
Exactly.
Because now it's, oh, they're going to protect us over here. And this is what led us to our current situation where we think that this thing called government is protecting us from stuff, but at the same time, we're upset that they're allowing a bunch of stuff that isn't safe for us. And
Exactly.
the reason that stuff is there, whether it's the food dyes or fluoride or whatever, is because people in government declared it to be safe.
Right.
Like
Well,
if
we
you,
listened. We allowed them to,
yeah,
we gave them the power and listened and
hmm
assumed that they were telling us the truth instead of
hmm
just continuing to grow our own food and not trust what they were saying and just go, oh, well, this feels, I mean, we have to go back 100 years,
yeah,
obviously, to like say, where did this all start when it comes to just the food
Hmm.
as an example. But it's like, where did we split? We split because we were like, oh, but they must be telling us the truth because there's all this due diligence that they went through. Like
Hmm.
otherwise they wouldn't be in that position. And it's like, no, that's not
Yeah.
actually. But
Yeah.
we listened essentially.
Hmm. Yeah. We stopped trusting ourselves and we stopped taking responsibility. And I mean, it makes sense because all of us have been conditioned for it through
Sure.
schooling and media and all that. Um, but yeah, so we're giving them permission to have authority to control us, to tell us what things we can and can't have. And not only that, but we give them permission to do that for our neighbors. And this is where like none of us has the authority to tell our neighbors what they can and can't do. But suddenly we can delegate that authority to politicians who can then rule over our neighbors and tell them that they can't grow a certain plant or whatever. When that you got to give up so much of your money to pay for somebody else's schooling or like all these different ways we're tangled together. But
Yeah,
I have no I have no moral authority to tell you to force you to do something or not do something. And so I can't vote for somebody to do that either.
exactly. Ah, so how does voluntarism, not volunteerism, but voluntarism, um, like something like blocking the sun, like how
Yeah.
would you go around that? Find a little piece of earth that the sun isn't blocked. Like how do we, like if
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
happens.
No one's asked me that one before.
Oh, really?
So that's
Oh,
good. Um, well, there's a thing of like if your neighbor's poisoning your pond, then ideally you'd go talk to your neighbor and say, "Hey, stop poisoning my pond."
right.
Or the shared resources. Um, or the neighborhood could talk about or what like we could solve this somehow.
Sure.
Um, but if the neighbor goes and gets a permit from the government to poison your pond, then like that's even harder to deal with. So I feel like with the blocking the sun thing, it's kind of this is where I'm okay with capitalism and I'm kind of okay with like
Mm.
if nobody buys it, then they can't really do anything at some point. Um, and this is how I think the food thing changes too. Like, we're not going to ban McDonald's, but we all just make different choices and say, hey, I value this quality food and support those farmers and food producers. And then the other thing just isn't relevant
It
anymore.
doesn't, it goes away. Right.
Yeah.
Something happens. Well, that's where it's like faith comes in. We have to have kind of faith that like that's not going to happen, hopefully.
Hmm.
But we never know. It's a crazy
Yeah.
world
Well,
we're living in.
I think there's also like if people don't believe in authority or they don't believe in government. Because government isn't its own thing, it's a whole bunch of people who believe in it. And so if everybody decides, like, hey, I don't believe in complying with this this war or this blocking out the sun plan or whatever, and we just kind of ignore it, like enough of us, then
Uh-huh.
like they can't do anything
Right.
at some point. I don't know what the critical
So
mass is there. I don't think it needs to be
yeah.
huge, but
Well,
like,
this is why like sorry, go ahead. I want you to finish your thought.
yeah, yeah, I don't know the exact percentage or like what it needs to be, but like, yeah, if people stop signing up for the military or whatever, then, the wars kind of go away, um, is my
That's
dream.
like, yeah, that's like really collective. We're all feeling this. It is in the ether because this is like
Hmm.
across seas that would have to be, and which I
Yeah.
think can happen. Um, I mean, it does happen. We definitely
Hmm.
have collective ideas at the same time, even if we haven't spoken about it.
Yeah.
Um,
And we can talk about group meditations, group
yeah,
prayers, and all the
right.
effects that those
That's
have.
right. Exactly.
So that kind of comes back to the usual. It's all us. It's the individual. It's our own doing our own work and everything.
Yeah.
Um, which it's gonna be a while. I
It's going
know
to
it
be
might
a
not be in my
while.
lifetime, but like I
Yeah. But
see
we're
that as
starting
like,
it.
yeah,
We're setting the precedents, right?
yeah. I see that as my like seven generations kind of thing
Yeah.
of like, okay, if my descendants they just live their lives. They just make choices for their health care, for their food, for their education, whatever makes sense to them. They're not hurting anybody else. And they just don't even think to ask for permission for something. Like they would, I want them to laugh at us now
Right.
because we're like,
Like it
oh,
was
I
so
need to
absurd.
go,
Right.
yeah, to go like protest and do petitions and like yell at buildings and all that, like it's
Right.
like I assume that I don't know, some ancestral group of people would laugh at that. They're like, "What are you doing?" That
Right.
doesn't make any sense. So I want us to get back to that point.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
it's a long, long road.
Yeah. So you feel like, yeah, the whole activism thing is just, it's a real waste of energy because you're still putting your energy towards a system that doesn't have your best interest. And why not put the energy towards, or not
Mhm.
just have your best interest, but is not going to ultimately do the thing that we need it to do. So put our energy towards smaller, local, individual,
Mhm.
ways of living and not rely on them to tell us we can or can't, like not give them the
Yeah,
power at all
right.
to say we can't
Um,
do something.
yeah, and yes, on the activism thing, that is my current belief or perspective.
Yeah.
I do also understand that there's an importance to it on each of our paths.
Yeah.
Like there is kind of you got to get really angry and you're going to fight for a while and there's the warrior thing and I think that's an important part of the journey.
Yeah.
I do also understand the situation of the like we need to protect the others who don't know any better. Um,
Right. Well, my thought process has always gone to the moms with kid undereducated. I think I said this
mhm,
maybe in a
yeah,
voice clip, but the undereducated maybe I don't want to say undereducated because that's not really it. So that's not,
like unaware maybe.
just maybe unaware, like that just not paying attention to all the mom
Mhm.
that goes to give her kid a vaccine that just
Right.
thinks that's what you're supposed to do. And there's zero awareness. I mean, right now, there's a lot of awareness
Yes.
around this topic because of these activists, and hopefully, these mothers who wouldn't have known any better, like they start to question, right? So I think that we're in a pocket of time where activism still has a little bit of a place just
Mhm.
to help to wake some people up. But I do feel like there's going to come a point, maybe close sooner than we think, where activism doesn't really have like enough people
Yep.
are aware and there's enough conversation around these topics and people are no longer afraid to just
Hmm.
speak up and have these conversations, that then we don't really need the activists anymore. It's just, I think we got to
Right.
get to that point. That's kind of my projector
Yeah.
sight on it.
Yes. Um, yeah, yes, I do love the activism it is bringing forward awareness to people
Yeah,
who would not know about it otherwise. Conversations are being had that have
exactly.
not otherwise had. I just don't put any hope in it actually changing anything with the system.
I agree.
And I think we'll get tiny victories kind of dangled in front of us.
That make us think.
And yeah. And so I don't want people to fall into that because then they're
Yeah.
going to get then they'll feel disempowered when the thing doesn't happen or whatever.
Well,
Uh,
it's also just getting all of our hopes right. It's
yeah.
building trust again in government, in a
Hmm.
side that's fighting for your thing that you are passionate about. And that's
Right.
literally what they do is they pull on our
Right.
heartstrings on both sides
Yeah.
and just dangle the carrot, and then it just flips to the other side and nothing really happens, and it's just this game,
Yes.
back and forth. But I mean, that's really the intention too for this podcast. The title is Truth and Unity, because like what I'm seeing right now is the left really questioning government and going back to things like 9/11 and questioning like, whoa, did this, they're the ones that are now more so in the conspiracy rabbit holes. And then you see the right like thinking, oh, like we can trust our government again. And now it's this man that's like fighting the system. And it's like, dude, it's so wild to me. And I feel like this voluntarism concept will work when it's like there's got to be enough of us on both sides of this. And unfortunately, we
Mhm.
have to still think of like that there's these two sides because that's kind of the majority of the people in the world, right? Or in the
Right.
country anyway. Um, and so, but it's enough people that don't do the pendulum swing anymore,
Hmm.
and I feel like I just think it's really interesting. Now there's some that won't, right? And there's some
Right.
that won't ever like step outside of that. But I do find it really interesting now that I'm having conversations with people who are more liberals, that are I'm curious to see if they don't carry the pendulum back when next term, when somebody that's
Hmm.
liberal gets into office or whatever, do they follow that or do they go, I don't know. This is just going to go back the other way in another 4 years or whatever's going to happen. But the trick to me is like not getting your heart wrapped up when they swing your passion project in front of you.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
No.
It's it's interesting. For me, I lived in DC for 15 or so years. And
Uh-huh.
so I wasn't very on the blue team, but I was surrounded by
Sure.
a lot of blue team.
Yeah.
Um, and I would see them make generalizations about red team people, like, oh, they hate women or whatever it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, they just had all these characterizations. And then by around 2020 and 2021, well, before then, I was starting to meet more farmers, more people in rural areas. So I was meeting more red team people.
Mhm.
And I started to go, wait, they don't hate women.
Right.
And like all the things I was told is a little different.
Yeah. It's
Um,
really different.
yeah, yeah. But then, some of them had their beliefs about blue team people and how they, want to kill babies or whatever,
Yeah.
um, was their thing. And so I remember I was like swaying further to red team, and then it was actually it was January 6th.
Ah,
I'm in DC, and I was like it was walking distance for me, so I'm like, of course I'm gonna go check it out.
sure.
Um, and there was like health freedom rally nearby as well, and I was like, oh, is red team my group? Because blue team didn't seem like my group. Maybe
Yeah.
like just trying to go to the other one.
I mean, there was a lot of there, it wasn't just about Trump's rally
Right.
that day. There was like, wasn't like Del Bigtree or
Yeah, yeah.
someone
That's
was
what I went to. Yeah.
exactly. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there were a number of health freedom people. It was like off on a stage kind of to the side of the
It's
Capitol.
funny because I remember like my more liberal friends at the time were like, I can't believe you're posting about this. Like, I was posting about health freedom stuff at the time.
Yeah,
And they're like, you're Trump supporting Trump. I'm like, wait, what? I didn't even know what they were
right.
talking about. I was like, I thought this was like a health freedom whole thing. I didn't even know. I didn't even.
Yeah.
Uh,
They kind of attached it onto the Trump
sure,
thing, which it
of course,
muddies the water completely. But
absolutely.
yeah, so listening to the red team people, and I'm like, this doesn't sound right either. This, like it's kind of that ongoing thing of like looking for your tribe or your community and just not never finding it. Um, so yeah, that day I learned that I wasn't a red team person either.
Yeah.
And then I didn't like I learned about like libertarianism, and that's just kind of like smaller government. So it's
I
better,
mean, I think
but
it's a
it's
little better. Yeah.
yeah,
I was
but it's
calling myself
still
libertarian for a little while as well. And I was like, I don't know if that's really me either. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah. So I was in that for a little bit, and then the big thing with voluntarism for me was I was at an event, was that called Music and Sky in 2022. 20, yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Larkin Rose is a big voluntarism guy. And he wrote a book called The Most Dangerous Superstition. And so the belief in government is the most dangerous superstition because it's like the religion that kills the most people, that steals the most property, that, like literally everything that we don't want to happen is like they do the people acting as government do the most of those things.
Absolutely.
Um, and so he's a little rough,
And
Larkin, to listen
manipulating the
to.
public.
Yeah.
Oh, he is.
Yeah, yeah, he's a little passionate about it, so it's kind of fun. He gets fired up. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
the book like goes through a whole lot of details on like, the what about police and what about this and what about that. Um, and yeah, and then I listen to him speak like just once and I go, "Oh yeah, that just makes sense to me."
Yeah, exactly.
Which is it's funny because like a lot of people they can't hear it. Like they'll listen to the talk and they go, but we need this, but we need, and it's just it's fascinating to see the different things that block each of us up. Um,
Absolutely.
any of the conspiracy things or the truther things or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, like I don't go for all the things either. I'm sure certain things block me up or that I'm resistant to. But it's fascinating to see where each person is on that.
I mean, I just think too, like, I have faith that as we evolve and more humans go into these smaller community type living, and whether they call
Mhm,
it voluntarism or not, but stepping more outside of that mainstream consciousness really is
mhm.
what it is. Um, I think there's gonna be just more option and more, again, just more awareness around how much power we all have.
Mhm.
And then as that grows, then it becomes evolves into something different and even bigger. And so what I've noticed is too is that like with this left right illusion really
Mhm.
is like we aren't really that different. It's just
No.
when the pendulum swings to one side and it starts to talk to our heart, then it makes it seem like we're really different. But for the most part, I feel like we all kind of want the same thing. If you get into like more broad ideas, if we do heal our trauma and if we do heal all our adversity and we don't have those really intense triggers for how we grew up or autoimmune or vaccine injuries or what,
Mhm.
LGBTQ, like you name the thing. If we don't have those big triggers anymore at the root of humanity, we're all the same. We all want freedom. We all want, if you talk to the person on the left, person on the right, it's like, oh, I want freedom. I want, some people say they want democracy, which who knows what that even means anymore.
It's
But yeah.
yeah, to me democracy is mob rule because
Yeah.
it's like if the majority of people vote to rob you, that doesn't make robbing you right, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, that was an interesting point that you're bringing up of we kind of need to do enough of the inner work, whatever that looks like, in order to get to a point where we don't need parental figures.
Exactly.
Because
Because
I think,
we're all of our wounds, it's our inner child. It's that wounded part that's like still taking the front seat.
mhm,
I mean, that activism, if you look at the individuals that are doing that, it's their fight because their inner child basically is screaming for attention and for to be seen and to be heard. And it's all those. So if those patterns have been healed, and I do think that's happening collectively,
mhm,
um, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I can just do this thing. Like I don't have to
yeah.
listen to this person or that person. It becomes I am the adult.
hmm I think I think of it as the teenage rebelliousness
Absolutely.
phase. Because it's the like, they won't let me do this thing, or they're
Yeah.
forcing me to do whatever, and then like, oh, I have to fight about it. And it's interesting too how it becomes so relational in terms of people will get to a point where they need to see what they think before they form their own opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, the TV said A, so I'm going to do the opposite of A. And I
Right.
mean, that works practically most of the time, but it's still like you're relating to like, oh, I need to see what the authority figure says before I have an
Right.
opinion
Well,
on
there's no
something.
trust. Yeah, the lack of the trust in self, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's still needing to cling to what is going to keep them safe in their tribe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we have that safety as the common thread just in our own body, then we have a lot of discernment around what we choose, who we choose, because we're not clinging to an idea or a concept or a belief or a group of people um for that sense of safety, which is like kind of false.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like that the fear of being canceled essentially is what it is. It's
Mm-hmm.
and then it takes over. And that all comes down to just our roots, our family system. And if it was not that safe or, emotionally stable or whatever the case may be, then we clung to our friends
Mm-hmm.
as that group. But so yeah, I think a world where we are no longer doing that. And again, I think that's kind of really the mission for most of
Mm-hmm.
us right now. Um, it really changes things and what we choose. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that this came up for me recently of like some people are going to stay in that. They want
Yeah.
daddy government
Yeah.
um to tell them what to do. Like they really don't trust themselves. And like one example I've heard from Joel Salatin, the lunatic farmer,
Uh-huh.
was, and I think this I heard this in 2019, so it had to
Uh-huh.
be years before that. But he would speak to universities, and he would ask like, "Do you think a license should be required to have a garden?" And some people would say yes, because they
Wow.
felt like, food is so dangerous and only the experts need to do it. And, like they just had that, it's kind of the like safety mindset. Um, and I, that is maybe some of a direction where some people are heading. Like there are plenty of things now where maybe our ancestors just did them, and then now we think are dangerous things that require experts and oversight and everything. So, um,
Yeah. I still think it comes back to just that awakening piece where it's like, and when enough of us have woken up, but you're right, some people won't, right? I mean, that's
Right.
just the truth of the matter. But yeah, I think for the most part, at least the way I see it right now, like most people know we shouldn't poison our food. I mean, most people know we shouldn't,
Yeah.
left and right. Like now
Yeah.
that is pretty solid across both parties.
Yeah.
Like
But
I will say, my kids are at a pretty liberal school.
mhm.
One thing that they really talk about, they have their own garden and stuff, and
Ooh.
the elementary kids are like involved in they're organic, farming,
Mhm.
and they eat the food and da da da. And so, I mean, and that's a that's pretty standard for the liberal person, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, but I don't know. I mean,
There's not really an agreement on what poison is, though.
oh, that's true. That's
Like,
true.
that's this is the whole like harm question too
Like
of
Miracle Grow is
right.
fine, right?
Right.
True.
Yeah, that's the, and you could get into seed oils and all the other stuff. So like
Yeah.
um, and they think a lot of people think fluoride is beneficial and
Ugh.
so
Well,
that
yeah,
that's
now you have a whole group of people that are like, oh, the people who weren't using fluoride now are like, oh, fluoride's great. It's just crazy
yeah.
because the government is saying don't. Now they're saying,
Right.
oh, yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the other problem with having other people define what's okay and what isn't okay because they're very far removed from like, where we are.
Their own
Or
discernment, accurate gauge.
they're far removed from where the thing is actually happening.
Right. Right.
So like,
Well, they're also far removed from the truth.
yeah, that
Yeah.
too.
Right.
But like even if they had that, they're still like distant from where the actual interaction is happening.
Right.
It's kind of. Um, but yeah, there's plenty of problems with that as a system.
Yeah.
Um,
So, what do you think the world looks like for us, those of us who are removing ourselves, let's say, from these big systems and trying to get more, like I think we're slowly inching our ways as much as we possibly can, kind of off grid, quote unquote.
mhm,
Um, what does the future look like? And what about like what does the future look like for those of us who just know they don't want to be a part of the whole smart city thing, the whole like AI,
mhm.
transhuman, that whole agenda? Like, where what do you think this pretty large, I feel like it's kind of large, but you're right. When we go back into the 3D world, we realize, oh my gosh, I'm the weird one. But maybe it's not that many people,
I,
but yeah, what does our future kind of look like as we start to remove ourselves, and how do we kind of do that?
yeah, great question.
Thank
The I mean, I think it looks like villages and communities,
yeah,
small communities, more rural.
yeah,
Um, I have a sticky note on my wall that says "Restore the village."
yeah,
Um,
awesome.
I think it looks like that. Um, I see intentional communities, being a big thing. There's a lot of good ones starting. Um, that's an interesting piece where we do need to do our work so that when we live together, we can actually cooperate with each other.
Absolutely.
Um, because some of those don't work so well when they try to recreate the same governance structure that
Exactly.
they're like running away from. So I see it like that. I see regenerative farming. Uh, we can get way more resources off of what we are given and what we're stewarding than what we were told to believe. So, like, a lot more food comes off of a small piece of land when we are working with nature and doing things more aligned there.
Right.
So it's not like we need a whole lot of land. It's not like we need a whole lot of resources or anything. Like we're just be using them and stewarding them in a more efficient way that supports everything. So
Yeah.
that's possible.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, our own food, bringing up our kids in the village, that's another big piece of like the moms are exhausted. I'm
Oh
sure
man,
you could speak to.
oh my
Um,
God. I'm talking about, yeah, I mean,
like,
I'm focusing my business on fatigue and burnout kind of right,
mhm.
at least currently. Seems to change over the, the each every few years seems to change a little bit, but yeah, I mean,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, we're tired.
yeah.
We're like,
So,
we're not supposed to be doing this. Oh,
yeah, all that the activism and the reading ingredients and the all the things. And yeah,
yeah.
like I love all that emotion. I love all of that energy. And you guys need support because you're not meant to raise kids on your own. So I'm looking forward to having the wise grandmas,
Yeah.
the
Aunties.
grandparents, the elders, yeah, everybody in the family and everybody in the village, um, taking part in being responsible for the kids and for bringing them up.
Yeah, I agree.
Because yeah, I think that's going to be
Yeah.
a huge relief. And I think it's going to make a lot of this much easier. Uh,
Yeah. Do you think that I hate to say this because it's going to go against the whole voluntarism concept,
mhm.
but yeah, and I'm gonna name that I can sense where my own kind of like I don't want to call it fear, but I'm still kind of touching into these fear-based concepts. But let's say we do have communities outside of the mainstream and kind of more off grid and we're formed, all this has happened and it's even written, I think that there are people who will remove themselves from the smart city type,
Mhm.
this 2030 agenda. Do you think there's going to be a point with which government is going to try to force us back in?
Um, Maybe I feel like, well, at one level, maybe on the short term, they're not gonna like come get all the rural communities.
Right.
Like it's just not practical.
Hmm.
Um, unless we talk about weather manipulation, and that's a possibility.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but like for the most part, yeah, I just don't see that being doable.
Mhm.
Also, we're going to have self-defense and private security forces and all that stuff. Um,
Are we gonna have
but
to make our own bullets? I think I need to revisit like The Walking Dead because I feel like whatever they were doing there, they figured it out. I don't know. I think
yeah,
it's still going on. So I don't know what's happening with that show.
yeah. So not that I'm not encouraging violence or anything. I am okay with self-defense. So
Yeah,
if someone is aggressing toward, using aggression towards another person, then like there is appropriate force, which we can
sure.
talk about what that means. But um, yeah, like we don't tolerate that kind of thing. And I don't there are times, of course, when people acting as government show up to situations and it turns into a giant mess. Um, but I also don't see that happening in like once we get to the mass of people, like I don't see that happening on a larger scale.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, it's possibly going to happen, some kind of standoff or something, but I don't see it as like uh they just don't have the resources to do that like everywhere. And I think enough people would stand up against that, especially if it's like go in your own community and like fight your family or whatever, then,
Right.
I believe enough people would stand down and go like, hey, this isn't right. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to not take this dark. Um,
I know it was
right.
a dark
But
question. I was like, oh,
yeah,
I can feel this as I'm saying it, but I'm going to ask
yeah.
it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that, yeah, like you said, part of that is there's an element of fear because people get into that mindset and then they don't do anything.
Exactly.
And like, it's almost that the fear of it, or it can be that the fear of it is the thing that stops us, and they don't even need all the weapons and all the chemicals and the other stuff. But if we believe that they have that kind of power, then like,
Right.
we're just compliant anyway. It's the what is it, training the baby elephant with the rope and the stick, and
Mhm.
then they like won't run away, or they can't run away when they're a baby, but then when they're an adult, they could run away, but they gave up. They stopped trying.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
know if that
Great.
story made any sense.
No, I think that's a great analogy. Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, it's enough fear, right? That
yeah.
they're trying to manipulate us to think that we can't run away, and we can.
Yeah. And I do think that I don't think there's a full exit the matrix kind of thing, unless you're going to be a total hermit and have no friends and all that.
Right.
So like I don't think that's like a full option
Uh-huh.
aside from for a few people.
Uh-huh.
So I also don't get discouraged by the idea that like, oh, maybe I'm not going to be fully exited if that's a thing. Because for now we're still using money and we're still using the internet and we're still doing like,
Right.
I'm not worried about that right now.
Right. Yeah. Um, so let's get to maybe wrap up a little bit. This is a
Okay.
really good talk. Um, you mentioned in your conversation faith-based organization. Would you like to
hmm
touch on what that is and how people can be a part of maybe your community and your organization and what you're doing and yeah, how people can
Sure.
find you?
Cool. Yeah. Healingoctopus.com. That's
Cool.
my name on Instagram, and there's a Facebook page and all that. Um, what I am working on in my new vocation or my new offerings is called terrain consulting. And this is education and support around the terrain paradigm of health. So, like understanding this different framework of how we view health
Hmm.
and how we view how we interact in nature. Um, so that's the whole piece is just this education. Like we got to get the philosophy behind it so that we can make better decisions with our health choices. Um, so I can support with that, with the educational piece, and I can support with the implementation in terms of sort of a coaching and accountability and hand holding, troubleshooting aspect of implementing the steps to support your terrain. And I'm also can refer people to the Biggleson brothers, and they do a holographic blood consult. And this is a giant one, so I'll give the short version is that
Okay.
uh, they can see holograms in a drop of blood, and it shows what the body is concerned about.
Oh
And
my God, how amazing. I want to do
yeah, yeah.
this. Awesome.
Um, I can support you with it.
Great.
So they can, and they've been doing this for about 4 decades. And so they've noticed patterns. So they can see images and they can tell, like, this is what the body cares about the most. And what is compelling for me is they kind of have the order of operations. Like sometimes you can, um, I would say, like, with you, with saying, like, nervous system work is the, like, lead domino.
Hmm.
Like we can work on all the other stuff, but if the nervous
Yeah.
system's doing it, then like, you're gonna have the biggest return from doing nervous system work in the
Yeah,
beginning.
right.
Um, so they kind of have the order of operations based on each individual. So it's like, here's what the body cares about, and they can recommend interventions. And so I can support in finding those interventions, getting to the right people, and implementing the different recommendations. So it's kind of like helping you do your homework. Um, so that's part of the terrain
Amazing.
consulting experience.
Oh,
Uh,
it's awesome.
mhm. Yeah, that's my one of my, I guess, passions or maybe my pet peeves is that there are so many things out here in the health space, and we're kind of have to like try everything and do different stuff and do it at a different order, at a different pace. And I feel like with uh, the terrain understanding and with the holographic blood consult, we can kind of zero in on like, here's what I need to do right now, or here's the
Most important.
emotion or the structure. Yeah, the most important. And then that kind of like helps make all the other things a little easier too.
Well,
Um,
it's also probably connected to all the other things. So
yes.
when that big thing goes away or gets resolved or whatever you want to say,
Hmm.
then the other things just by default are also go away. And that was kind of
Right.
if we put it into that nervous system lens, or my like when I think about it in my own world, right, of my own health journey and stuff, that lupus shutdown was like the big culprit. When I figured that piece out, it was like it was like a domino effect,
Hmm.
a lot of the other pieces kind of, um, yeah, resolved. So
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. So working on that, and then I'm working on an organization that I'm starting.
Mhm.
Um, that is more oriented with uh, doing things in the private, which is the voluntaryism concept of it's just between us. Um, and I'm putting together that organization, and that's in progress. And I have to define my faith on that and like what I believe and my vision and everything, and
Mhm.
getting that down into words is what I'm working on now.
Awesome.
But I think that's going to be fun. It's going to have a community element. I am doing monthly virtual calls where it's just kind of people getting together, and I share whatever topics coming up to me. And I'm also starting to do more talking things, more creating content, sharing my perspectives on things. Just now that I realize that it's actually important for others.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's most of the things that I'm working on now. And then I think eventually I'll be a practitioner of some kind.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're already off to a good start with this coaching with this holographic blood stuff. So that's
Hmm.
awesome.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for your work in the world. Thank you for meeting
Thank
with
you.
me, but more importantly, thank you for your work in the world. Thank you for bringing awareness to all these really important topics and being a leader in where we're headed. Because I do see you that way.
Oh,
And and also thank you for joining me. It was a really awesome talk, and maybe we'll do it again sometime.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Bye.